Municipal authorities in developing cities and developing countries have similar challenges in the area of local revenue mobilization. And a lot of these challenges can broadly be categorized into administrative challenges and policy or regulatory challenges. Administratively, most municipalities do not have functional tax registers. Where they have these tax registers, they're either unupdated or they're out of date. The absence of functional registers is further compounded by limited automation of revenue administration, where manual registers are maintained, manual assessments are issued, manual ledgers are maintained, and the end result is that it actually affects compliance levels of the taxpayers. In most cases, actually, the revenue collection unit is actually understaffed. Inadequacy of staffing, inadequate skills, all compound the problems of local revenue administration. For a taxpayer to make a tax payment, he probably has to go over a 10-process schedule, where you first obtain registration, assessment, payment, reconciliation. And this is highly bureaucratic. One big challenge noted has been that most municipalities outsource revenue collection without doing a feasibility as to the benefits of outsourcing. And as a result, they actually give out their key revenue sources to private participants. And this breeds inefficiency, breeds image issues for the local authority. Just to add that for the case of Kampala, when some dues were outsourced to be collected, the result was negative in the areas of property tax, where the outsourced agents, staff, were actually collecting money in their pocket. And these monies were never posted to the taxpayers' ledgers. And therefore, it actually spoiled the relationship between the taxpayer and the city authorities. The rally call for revenue mobilization has got to be championed by political leadership. But in most cases, the political leadership shies away from the reality of impressing it upon their citizens to make a contribution to the city or municipality's development. And this, in one or the other, complicates revenue administration in African cities. On the policy side, you have weak laws. The embodiment of the laws does not give adequate support for the revenue administrators to do their work. For example, within the jurisdiction of Uganda and most Ugandan cities, the main source of revenue is the property tax. The law that regulates collection of property tax exempts unoccupied properties. That exemption is not adequately qualified. We have cases where a property owner has more than 4 properties and he claims they're all unoccupied, because one is occupied by the daughter, the second is occupied by the first wife, the third is occupied by the son, and the fourth is occupied by a concubine. And verification of these unoccupied properties is extremely very tedious. Limitations that actually arise because of overlaps in the tax jurisdictions. You have the national tax bodies collecting revenues that are akin to that collected by the local authorities, where you actually now get a potential clash, where a taxpayer feels that he's overburdened by a tax charge on the same property. So there needs to be a synchrony within the national tax jurisdiction and the local tax jurisdiction to make it very easier for the local authorities to actually effectively administer taxes. Part of the success that we've achieved can be attributed to staff, the human resource. Have the right staff in the right place for the right job, you will have the results. At KCCA, the Revenue Directorate was resourced with the right qualification of staff, with the right skills. Regular staff appraisals are conducted. We've made it mandatory for our senior staff in the Directorate to actually train, reskill those that they supervise, and it is part of what we appraise staff on. The second area of improvement that we were able to undertake is the need to automate and face it, with all the challenges it comes. Automation simplifies revenue administration. The fact that you have automated taxpayer registration, automated billing, automated assessment, a lot of your energies will go into compliance management. And once you automate, the next line of action is to re-automate. Because after 2-3 years, the first automation will have deficiencies along the way. One other unique thing that we've done as Kampala City is to make compliance improvement programs a central part of our revenue administration. We undertake regular taxpayer engagements. These take forms of workshops, seminars. These take form of community barazas. These take form of radio talk shows, form of TV talk shows. We even communicate with the taxpayers using SMS. And all these give a lot of information to the taxpayer, and it's very easier to actually build voluntary compliance. My desire as Director of Revenue Collection is to attain 90% level of voluntary compliance. And I believe that's the desire of every revenue collector, because non-compliance makes tax collection very costly. So investing in voluntary compliance programs should be at the heart of every revenue administration process. IGC has basically tackled the 3 key policy areas that we think are going to significantly support revenue administration. The local revenue reform policy touched on the need to repeal the exemption of unoccupied properties in the Property Tax Act. We picked this up, and we're presently working with the Ministry of Finance to have policy changes in the law so that we can actually be able to bring all properties within the city within the purview of property tax. We are fast-tracking the taxation of vacant urban land as a new policy, as a new law, as a new ordinance that we can actually use to tap into that sector of revenue that we've never obtained at all. We are currently developing a number of internal process guidelines arising from Professor Mihaili's review of our internal processes. These internal process guidelines will focus staff attention to critical areas of processes, to critical areas of decision-making, and to critical areas of judgment. Because for a long time, a lot of our internal processes are not documented, and the absence of documentation significantly prevents or limits staff from executing judgment consciously. So those 3 areas we think are very core and are going to improve our revenue effort. KCCA as an institution has a lot of assets in form of land. We are currently having internal discussions on what best use this land can be put to be able to accrue additional benefits to the city. And we think there are many cities across the globe that have similar assets and have earned value out of these assets. So we think that by sharing experiences, by learning from those institutions that have actually harvested value out of the land, very commercial land, highly commercial land, we can actually see how we can turn our land into additional value. Because currently all this land we have, a lot of it is actually vacant. Secondly, we want to look at levies that can accrue to the city from infrastructure that is put in the city by other utility companies. You have the telecom masts. You have the National Electricity Distribution Company. You have the National Water and Sewerage Corporation. These entities invest significant infrastructure in the city. One of the city's core responsibilities is to provide services in where this infrastructure is installed. So we think that through either cess levy or a small contribution, these entities should be able to make a small contribution. The uniqueness that we have in our city compared to other cities is that other cities actually manage utilities. Kampala doesn't manage utilities. Yet Kampala is going to provide the environment within which the utility companies actually operate, both in terms of physical infrastructure and social services. And therefore, we think the utility companies must make a contribution. We are also trying to collaborate with our internal directorates and departments that are trying to undertake effort in areas of PPPs, solid to waste. We think that all these initiatives should be able to compound and enhance our revenue yield. But primarily primary focus now is to actually convert idle assets into value for the city. And we're working on that.